Hi, everybody. Welcome back again. Look, if you're new around here or just tuning in for the first time, this is the Tech Build Network, where we bring together founders, CTOs, engineering leaders, VCs, and operators for honest conversations about building and investing in technology businesses and sharing what's actually working, what's not, and some of the lessons learned along the way. Today's podcast guest is Aidan Finn, who's the CEO and co-founder of Benari Labs. Benari Labs is a Dublin-based cybersecurity company taking a very different approach to protecting data, helping organizations secure their most sensitive information through a patented approach to distributed storage and resilience. In this episode, we talk about what inspired building the company, which is very interesting, why deep tech startups have to play by, I suppose, different rules, raising capital outside the traditional VC route, and why channel partnerships are central to their growth strategy. We also get into the realities of building trust in cybersecurity, some of the challenges they face along the way, and why Aidan believes more people should have a go at building something themselves. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I think you will too. I think you will too. Enjoy. Hey, Aidan. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining me.
No problem. Thank you, Jack.
You know me, I like to get stuck in straight away and ask you some questions. But before we get into the podcast itself, do you mind just giving a quick intro to you and Benari Labs?
Sure. Aidan Finn is my name. I'm one of the co-founders here at Benari Labs. I'm the CEO. We're based here in Dublin, in University College Dublin. We're in the Nova UCD section, which is the innovation hub of, I think, about 60 or so client companies in here at the moment, in a sort of a segregated section of the college campus, which is a lovely spot to be located, I have to say.
Perfect. And what is the sort of problem that you guys are solving, and so what does it matter? Why does it matter now?
Well, there's a number of problems we're solving. We're a cybersecurity company. That we're not a services company. We've created a proprietary solution that's quite specific, and we're patented US and UK. So essentially, without getting too heavy on the tech, this is a solution that allows any company of any size to upload their general files, usually the more sensitive ones that they have to keep particularly safe, whether that be for regulatory reasons or just good practice. And it allows them to store them in a very different way. So essentially, instead of uploading a file into one location and then doing everything in your power to secure that location and protect the location itself or the system itself from attack, whilst also maybe backing up that file elsewhere, we're focused entirely on the data and the data files. So we actually process the data file in a very different way. It's in a nutshell, it's a process that allows the file, each and every time it's uploaded, to be immediately duplicated, essentially destroyed, because it's broken up into little fragments, and then all those fragments are magically encrypted, mixed up in the mixing bowl, and distributed to 3 storage locations that the client owns. So it's an important distinction. We're not a storage provider. We facilitate the user storing their data more securely and in a essentially distributed manner, but distributed amongst solely their 3 storage locations that they own and control. So solving the recurrent problem, which is probably most topical, is what they call sovereignty. Mm-hmm. And that's the concern really about, who ultimately controls the data that you store, regardless of who you've chosen as a storage partner provider, what nation really is overseeing that and ultimately accessing and controlling it. But sovereignty is even a local issue. You choose a local provider. If you choose a local provider, I should say, you still have to be concerned about the risk that anything may happen with that provider, or your data being held within that provider. And in our scenario, if any one provider's location that you use goes down or is breached, you don't lose anything. You have continuous uninterrupted access to your data through our solution, through the other 2 locations. But you've also not given away anything or lost anything, because all that has been accessed in the case of a breach in that location is incomplete files.
Out of interest, what sparked the idea for building Benari Labs?
Um, well, Stephen Garner was the inventor,
Mhm.
and Stephen actually, he comes from a background of having worked in regulated financial services, and was paranoid about how data was being secured or not, um, and was always really looking for ways to do it better.
Mhm.
And the aha moment was actually watching Harry Potter with his kids.
Really?
Yeah, the seven Horlocks were broken up into it was broken up into seven pieces, and it was only when all of those seven pieces recombined that they had access to the power. So that was his light bulb moment of, well, why don't we do this to files themselves to ensure that they're protected
Mhm.
as distinct from protecting the environment they're in, like a vault.
Isn't it amazing how the mind works at times?
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome. And like obviously, like I know we had a conversation. So like Benari sits in, like the sort of deep tech, data security space. How does that change the way you build with, a typical SaaS startup, for example?
Oh, massively. The more I get into it, the more I nearly equate it to almost something like medtech.
Okay.
You're releasing a solution that is literally processing people's most sensitive data. And you don't, unlike many SaaS solutions where things can go wrong and they will be understood and forgiven, glitches or bugs or whatever, that just can't happen
Mhm.
in our industry. So, the building of it is entirely different, because it's a different process. It's an
Mhm.
entirely different process. It's not just a matter of, as will happen, not in all SaaS, but as a general, it's just general acceptance that one can build relatively quickly,
Mhm.
and build even quicker now with AI, and release much quicker, and learn from the mistakes and learn from the issues that happen and fix it really quickly. That's just not something we can be afforded the luxury of doing. So it means a very different. First of all, there's a lot of deep research had to go into enabling, Stephen's idea to
Mhm.
turn into an actual functioning reality. But then beyond that, you've got to research beyond the technical elements. You've got to research its actual ability to be acceptable to enterprise, to integrate into existing tech stacks, to there's so many ways that you could propose to go forward as a business with a technical solution. You've got to pick the one way that allows an integration to occur that's going to allow you to be able to be, commercially relevant. So all of that is built into your R&D, not just the building of the thing, um, but the time spent internally with virtual data and with brilliant engineers
Mhm.
in building the I wouldn't even say the MVP, because it was really just the beginnings of what the solution will become, in the sense that, like, you're not even building MVP when you're building deep tech, really, because you have to get to a very advanced, mature stage before you can even allow testing with users, if you get me.
Mhm. Mhm. Unreal. And I know another thing we discussed was obviously in terms of like the fact that you guys have taken, a slightly different sort of funding route, raising through
Mm.
angels, syndicates, crowdfunding, sort of Enterprise Ireland and the European Innovation Fund support rather than like traditional VC. I mean, what could you tell us about sort of what that journey has been like?
There's pros and cons to everything, isn't there?
Mhm.
I think, for us, building, when you're not in medtech, building something in deep tech that involves a lot of time, with a lot of building and a lot of research, and no revenue,
Mhm.
um, is it's maybe coming around now to being understood by certain VCs, but it's just not the general. You just don't fit the general risk profile of most VCs. So rather than take a view that we would, not start until we had enough commitment from finding the right VC partners who would work with us, we wanted to start. So initially, it was really necessity rather than design. Raising from high net worths and raising from angels. We all have a deep network. We've all done this before in terms of startups and exits. And we're fortunate to have that ability to reach out to people in the early stage. But when it got further along, we kind of, I wouldn't say quite became a case study, but we were certain in terms of getting Enterprise Ireland support as somebody who did not have a VC on board, and that was a different process, and it was full credit to Enterprise Ireland for their willingness to be open to recognizing the proficiency with which we were building something that made sense in a commercial world, and that it was a different route of building, but also a different route of raising, and recognizing the sweat, the hard work, and the effort that has gone into bringing all these different investors into investing at an early stage. So in 2023, we were able to supplement our fundraising through a brilliant campaign with Spark crowdfunding here in Ireland. And as an EWIS business, we were able to present the opportunity to raise money in the public, which was actually brilliant because we got the opportunity to go out speaking to everybody about what we were building, not just doing roadshow with specific investors behind closed doors, but speak to everybody. And in speaking to everybody, it spiraled interest in not just investing, but in our solution, in who we are, in what we're building, and how we exist, and what we're bringing to market. So the fact that we got $1 million from a group of crowdfunding investors alone in 2023, in addition to money from Enterprise Ireland and money from other angel investors, and then follow-on money from essentially the European Innovation Fund through EIT Digital, was huge. It was absolutely huge in 2023/24 as we closed it, and it allowed us to accelerate greatly from there, where we've just almost finished an additional round now in 26 of 1.85 million, and actually probably in excess of 65% of our current raise has come from our existing shareholders who followed on, which is a tricky thing to do when or if if you're closing a traditional round, you're getting to a stage where you've got to get X amount of people on board together, X amount of VCs all agreeing with each other and are happy with the terms. Whereas when you did what we did, we were able to present the terms up front and go and seek the people who liked the terms, who were willing to invest, and we did not have to wait for everyone to align and agree before we could get to the point of actually closing. So that in itself was a real positive for us.
100%. It's really interesting, because it's obviously like a conversation a lot of people are having at the minute, given the fact that like the VCs have such a high bar right now, and people are just sort of determining which route to take. So I think that will be definitely really interesting to a lot of people.
Yeah, look, we're asked about it a lot, and I would stress. I mean, I know all the VCs well, and there's just huge merit in what they do, and the businesses they've invested in have really gotten so many supports that we don't get. And those are the cons, we don't get those qualitative factors, we don't get that network effect. But we certainly got money quicker, and we got more certainty around the money we were getting. So from our shareholders' perspective, we were able to say, we're halfway through a round, definitely. We're not we don't have half the interest that may fall down at the end if when term sheets come out and one or two people don't agree or pull out. We definitely have whatever it might be, 500,000
Yeah.
or 1 million or whatever.
100%. So we talked about the fact like you guys are now approved across like major marketplaces. So we've got like AWS, Microsoft, Google, Oracle, OVH Cloud. How important sort of look is that channel strategy then for the sort of next phase of growth?
Oh, it's everything. It's everything. We're not building, a sales team to sell direct at all. We've built a business that's designed from the get-go to scale through partners. Now that the status or scale or size of the partners and the opportunities they bring have changed, and they've grown, thanks to the validations that you mentioned. So now that we have essentially hyperscaler approval, through approved partner networks, certifications, enhanced programs, and marketplace listing, we're suddenly very active in very large opportunity pools that we were never in before. And that, like I said, that in itself is not everything, but that is absolutely essential to getting to the stage where we need to scale.
Did you weigh up the sort of pros and cons again? I know we're sort of we said that
Yeah, I
on the
mean,
previous point, but
100%. And maybe it goes back to the deep tech question, or not even the deep tech question, but the sector question, right? In the same way you can't afford to go out and build something quick, make a mistake and start again, or fix it and move on. Because you have to win trust to do. You can do that directly, but it will take years and years and years.
Yeah.
You can bypass that time it takes to win that trust by working with people who are already trusted by the buyers. So you've got a seller who's on a platform, and that seller is a seller to, I don't know, let's call it 100 enterprises that are in your sector. Our time spent in meeting that reseller, enabling them to understand what we do, enabling them to prep their pre-sales team or agree to prep their pre-sales team and then approve it through their product committee, etc., takes time. But that time of getting approval from a reseller or a channel partner is infinitely less than the time it would take to get to actual point of conversation with an end user had we not had their intervention or their assistance.
With the risk, I suppose, as well of either a performing or not performing sales team and everything else as well. Internally, selling a product in that situation too. Okay.
Yeah. No, look, it still means supporting, those sellers as though they are your end users, and we still need to resource that internally, but it's a smaller volume of people than if you were building the sales and the marketing and the support in-house. So having, winning a reseller account or even bigger now, a channel partner account with significant number of resellers on it is hugely important to us. It's something we value and cherish, frankly. So we resource it. We resource it in terms of supporting them to help them, and we often handhold literally with them. We have been on many end user calls where we're with them, supporting them in the conversation or the explanation around scoping or even just what we have in the first instance or in the early stages of us being presented.
Yeah, 100%. From, I suppose, like a founder perspective, what would you say has been perhaps maybe like the biggest lessons in building trust in a space where security, reliability, and credibility, I suppose, are everything at the minute?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, was it a lesson learned per se, but it was definitely just something we've embodied and ensured from the outset, is that every single engagement is one of measurement. You're being measured. You're being measured on the prospect call. You're being measured on the on the follow up. You're being measured on the scoping call. You're being measured on the demo. You're being measured at every point as to whether your service is sufficient, not just your solution. Your domain knowledge, your expertise is sufficient, and again, not just your solution. A key part of it is in winning trust is ensuring that someone, trust goes both ways. When we're engaging with a reseller, we're then exploring an opportunity for them to sell what we have, and we have to trust that they will do that responsibly and carefully, and with the values that we share, we hold paramount. So either way, I guess the lesson is that it takes longer than even we envisaged, right? And that's certainly a lesson. But the overriding principle was always true from the outset, is that we have to, cherish and care and respect everyone, just as much as if it were an end user client.
100%. And look, obviously, recent funding, we spoke about it a little bit, but I mean, what is next then for Benari Labs over the next sort of 12 to 24 months? What comes next?
This is exciting times, actually. So it's all coming next now. As I say, we've kind of cracked that milestone earlier than we thought, actually, of gaining significant approvals and certifications, both externally through independent certifications like ISO 27001, SOC 2, NIST CSF2, we're HIPAA compliant, all of that. But after that, the cracking the approvals of the larger the hyperscalers and the larger providers that you mentioned, and some of the niche really specialist private providers that we haven't yet mentioned that are happening as well. That's really exciting. So all of that is just about breakout. It's about breakout to scale for us, and it's about us, our funnel thankfully is growing exceptionally strongly, and there's so much pipeline that's just moved right into the tip of conversion now that is keeping us very busy. So I suppose what's next is our ability to support that and grow at the right pace that allows us to always be able to support as we grow, right? As distinct from growing too slowly and not getting enough business, or growing too quickly and not looking after that business sufficiently. So it's that balance for the next year of adding more and more business that we must support, and making sure that our scaling formula that we have in place and our scaling resource and support that we have in place is actually sufficient to bring us to the next level beyond that 12 months.
100%. Awesome. It is exciting times in Benari Labs. We added I suppose a new question, or maybe a new structured question in our podcast.
Go on, hit me.
Ship happens, right, with a P. I keep having to reiterate to myself that I'm saying it with a P because of my strong accent. But like building a startup, doesn't always go to plan. We always talk about all the awesome stuff, but what would you say has been the biggest ship happens moment so far at Benari Labs, and what did you take away or learn from it?
Thankfully, we haven't really had any in real live time, but where we have had some it's a part of a process that we've almost had some, and that's as a credit to our team and the testing they do pre-release. We did have one scenario where actually what we've actually had is we've had almost the opposite, where we've had clients with storage providers that have gone down, and we have, due to the fact that we have implemented our solution with them, they have continued with full access to their data, even though one of their providers went down. But that's just what we've designed the solution to do. So that wasn't an exception to the rule. That was, I guess but I suppose what I mean is the very first time that really happened, it was a bit of a global news story, and it was the first time we were really actually testing in live something that was completely outside of our control and had happened. And we woke up to the news that, we didn't have many clients at the time, but those that were in the US were actually messaging us to say that they were good, they were okay, which was really super. We had one where one provider who was a part of our tech stack just went down completely for a while, and that was a scary moment in the sense that there was a kind of a worldwide outage going on, and we thankfully did have to action a contingency. Now it wasn't a storage partner. It was another partner within the infrastructure, but it actually tested our resiliency measures and our contingency measures that for the first time again in a live scenario, and it worked. We were maybe half an hour out without providing service, whereas a lot of the world were 8, 9, 10 hours in that particular moment, in that particular instance. So, so where we have the ship happens moment, actually there are many, but they're tending to happen before we release, and there's been all sorts, like no one can log on. The usual interface is doing funky things it's not meant to be doing, but thankfully that's all been managed internally in a virtual environment that we run through. So we've seen many there, and in fairness, that really is, it just goes to show how easily it can happen, and we work hard to ensure it doesn't.
100%. I suppose it's a little bit different for you. I was thinking about when I was asking that question, I was going, well, like for you guys, it's typically you don't really have any margin for error, really. You can't afford to, so it's a little bit different. But no, that's brilliant. And then final question I always like to leave on, outside of all the serious stuff we've spoken about, what kind of advice would you give to other founders out there, other people who might be watching this, technologists, and they're thinking like, I want to build something, and they're thinking about becoming a founder themselves?
Well, I think well, it's funny. I had this conversation last week in a cyber founders group, and it was almost everyone saying the advice would be don't do it.
Can't leave it on that, Aidan. I'm sorry. We're gonna have to think of something else.
I think do it. I think the opposite. No, I think and again, if someone asked me this last week, I said if I had time back, I would have done it much younger and much earlier. I think there's a lot to be said for having experience and I guess a bit of wisdom with grey hair or lack of hair, but you learn so much more and so much more quickly from just getting started and doing it. So I would nearly endorse for everybody to have a go at some stage, at an early stage in their life, when the risk is the risk of it not working is or the impact of it not working is low, because it is there's being a founder, no matter what your badge or title is, we've ourselves as a group of co-founders here, we have to be all over all elements of the business, and you do have to bring yourself to learn so much you didn't know before you started very quickly. And it's a great life experience. It's a huge learning curve and a steep one, but yeah, definitely one I would advocate. But like I said, do it earlier, do it younger.
100%. Podcast caption will be Aidan Finn says do it. Okay, well, look, I have no more questions for you other than just to say, look, obviously, like, really appreciate the time. Thanks for jumping on. I'll make sure in the comments that I am like tagging both you and Benari Labs. Anyone that wants to connect, you know, they can reach out to you a lot easier. And yeah, thank you very much for today, Hayden.
Not at all. Thanks a million. Thanks for your time.